Here's a question that has followed humanity across every continent, every ocean, and every age. Why did every civilization on earth, every single one, honor the dead? I mean, in Egypt, pyramids were built for them. China built shrines and swept their tombs. Rome kept their spirits in households. Mexico still throws huge festivals every single year. And the Igbos break kola, pour libations, and even call their names when we make decree in form of prayer. Every continent, different language, no contact with each other, yet same instinct. So what did they all know? And more importantly, what have we forgotten? Welcome to Through the Veil. I am Ralu Chukwuma. Not everything forgotten is lost. Every generation believes it understands the world better than the one before it. We have more technology, more information, more convenient. But have we ever thought that we've forgotten something? This is a journey into African history. Forgotten civilizations, philosophy, archaeology, spirituality, culture, and the timeless questions that continue to shape who we are today. Together, we'll separate myths from history, tradition from evidence, and assumptions from truth. Because sometimes the greatest discoveries are not new, they are simply remembered. This is episode 5, Wokies, and today we're asking ourselves, who are our ancestors? Who were they really? And what is the difference between honoring them and worshiping them? Today we're going to start with the wound, right? Because many of us, for many of us, this topic doesn't, really begin with curiosity. It begins with shame, right? Sadly. When the missionaries arrived on our shores in the 19th century, they looked at our shrines, our libations, our masquerade, our kola rituals, and they gave it one name, called it idol worship, paganism, devil worship, They looked at it as barbaric and fetish. Shrines were burnt, first staffs were thrown into fires, sacred groves were cleared, and generations of our people, including perhaps our own great-grandparents or grandparents, grew up, taught to be ashamed of practices that they were never allowed to understand. Today, many of us can recite the theologies of Rome or Canterbury in detail, but, we can't explain our own great-grandfathers, what they were doing, when they touched the kola nut to the earth and spoke the names of their ancestors in the morning air. We never understand that. We never taught all of that. So here's the question this episode really hangs on. Was it worship, right? Were we worshiping the dead and our ancestors? Or was it something that we've been mistranslating for over 150 years now? To answer this question, let me bring in a scholar, John Mbiti, a Kenyan philosopher and theologian, and one of the most cited African voices in religious studies. In his landmark 1960 book, African Religions and Philosophy, Mbiti studied traditions across the continent and reached a conclusion that changed the field. African ancestors, he argued, were never gods. He coined the phrase for them. He called them the living dead. Not ghosts, not deities, family members who have crossed the threshold, but who remain part of the community, still consulted, still respected, still present at the table. And here's the distinction our colonizers never made, but which their own church makes every single day. Worship is for God. Veneration is for the honored. Even Catholics light candles to saints. They keep, sacred relics. They ask saints to intercede for them. Nobody calls that idol worship. I mentioned that before. It's called veneration, and it is defended by centuries of theology. Our ancestors drew, this, same logic of the same school of thought. However you choose to put that. In Igbo cosmology, worship belonged to Chukwu, the supreme God. Worship was strictly, like I said, to God. The same way Catholics today say we worship God and we honor Mary, right? Very popular within the Catholic theology and doctrine. So our ancestors were never worshipped. They were remembered, consulted, honored. There is a difference, Once you see that difference, the whole story changes. Now I always like to bring this whole talk back home so that we make proper insights as to what we do or what we've been practicing back here, for donkey years. In Igbo tradition, the ancestors were called Ndi Ichie. And here's the first thing that surprises people. Not everyone who dies becomes an ancestor in that sense when it comes to Ndi Ichie and the reverence that are given to ancestors in that light. Ancestorhood wasn't, automatic. It was earned. And now, what I'm about to describe, is different in different oral traditions, communities. The details are, different in different places, but across much of Igbo land, these qualifications usually ran, something like this. To become an ancestor, you had to live a good moral life, number one, right? You had to reach a ripe old age also. You also had to lead descendants, children that will carry your name, and your memory to the next generation. And you had to receive proper burial rites, which, this last one is the enormous one, because funerals in Igbo land is not just saying goodbye. It's more like a rite of passage. Death alone did not carry you to the land of the ancestors. The rites did. And that's why in many communities, burials are not just like a ceremony, and it's not just one burial. It's like ceremony is like two, right? So the burial itself, and there's also the second rite, which is the ikwa, the celebration of the dead, which is complete, which actually helps in completing that passage, that crossing to the next threshold. So without those rites, traditions held that the spirit could not rest. The spirit keeps wandering. So those rites were important. And so think about it. Just think about it. Have you ever wondered why Igbo funerals are so enormous? People get to talk about it. It's really common. Families will spend a lot of money, save, and they will gather from across different parts of the world just to bury one elder. This is why the burial of a parent treated, with so much seriousness that sometimes outsiders make mistakes and call it extravagance and things like that. But it was never really about the show. It was about safe passage of the dead. It was the last greatest duty a child owed their parents. So to carry them properly across this threshold, that they could sit among Ndi Ichie, that's the whole idea. And once a family member is seated among Ndi Ichie, the relationship continued in daily practice. So, calling them during prayers, libations, breaking kola, and things like that never stopped. It continued. So they were part of the society still, like the Kenyan philosopher Mbiti would say, living dead. So that's where the idea is formed, because they were their ancestors were remembered in Igbo civilization. They governed, they were part of the Supreme Court, and even before anyone dismisses all of this recent folklore, let me give you a little bit of archaeology here. In 1959, in a small town in Anambra State, the British archaeologist Tosan Shaw excavated Igbo, and among the discoveries was a burial chamber, a wooden vault in which a dignitary had been laid to rest, seated upright, dressed in full regalia, surrounded by beads, bronzes, and emblems of his office. The burial had been dated around the 9th century. That's over 1,000 years ago. So let's elaborate it. Let's be deliberate. It was honored passage of the dead sitting in the archaeological records of our own soil. So this is not just a tradition we invented last century and going on for thousands of years. Think about that, right? Well, let's be frank. Every civilization does this. Right, you go to China for roughly 2,500 years. Confucian filial piety has placed that honoring of parents and ancestors is very core and is very central to your moral life. So family keeps ancestral tablets, and every spring during the Queen Ming festival, right? I hope I pronounced that well. Millions of people travel to sweep tombs of their ancestors. That's literally how in China they revere their ancestors. And this is not just China. Even in Japan, every summer during the Obon, families believe that spirits of their ancestors return home for a visit. So they clean family graves, they light lanterns to guide spirit back. Cities empty as everyone travels back home the same way we'll travel back home in December. Those of us from Southeastern Nigeria would. And it's one of the largest annual migrations in their country also. That reverence for their ancestors, that's the reason why they go back home from cities and towns. And then this doesn't just stop in Asia. Let's look at what happens in Europe. So in ancient Rome, every Roman household kept lares, guardian spirits of the family, with a small shrine in the home. And every February, the festival of Parentalia, I guess that's where the etymology for the word parents. But yeah, every February, the festival of Parentalia was set aside to honor the dead parents and kin. And even in Mexico till today, there's something called the Dia de los Muertos. Is it called, like in English, the Day of the Dead, basically. And families build altars, cook their favorite foods for their departed, and gather in cemeteries to celebrate them. In 2008, UNESCO inscribed it on one of the list of the tangible cultural heritage of humanity. And here's the part that should give you like a harshest critic pause. So just calm down. Even in Christianity, right, there are kept days for the dead. All Saints Day, All Souls Day is the entire month in November where Catholics have this tradition devoted to remembering the departed. 1st and 2nd of November, if I'm correct. And they are holy days of worship, are days that are referred to in Catholic Church, like Sundays are. So they're days that are kept and are dedicated and devoted for actual worship. So this shows us a pattern, right, from China to Japan to Rome, Mexico, Europe, Africa. Civilizations separated by oceans with no contact, crossed thousands of years, and every single one of them arrived at the same practice. Keep your dead close, keep your dead close. Remember them, call their names. That when every civilization independently invents the same behavior, it's not just superstition, it becomes data, data about human nature. That makes sense. So the question here is, what were all of them responding to really? What need? What truth? Is it so deep in the human condition that every people on earth built rituals around it? Just hold that question for a while, or maybe you could answer in the comment also. But then let's not end it at just what has been practiced in the past. Let's also look at what modern science has to tell us about this. In the years before 2001, two psychologists at Emory University in the United States, Marshall Duke, Robin DeVos, they also set up to study something very unusual, right? So they wanted to know, does it matter whether a child knows their family story? That was the question. What does it matter if a child knew their family story? So they developed a simple measure. They called it the Do You Know scale. 20 questions. Do you know where your grandparents grew up? Do you know how your parents met? Do you know of an illness or something terrible that happened in your family? Do you know the story of your birth? Questions like that. Then they measured the children that partook in this experiment. They measured their psychological well-being, and the results was actually stunning. Children who knew more of their family history showed higher self-esteem, a stronger sense of control over their lives, greater resilience in the face of stress. And Duke and Fivosh reported it as one of the strongest predictors of a child's emotional health. That's what the results were. So think about that for a second, and then think about you. Think about what you know about us, and if that all makes sense. And let us also try to ask these questions and actually do this test ourselves among our family or friends and people around us to see actually, does that really hold water? So why? The researchers, they proposed a mechanism. They called the mechanism the intergenerational self. The child who knows their family stories, the triumphs of their family, the disasters, the migration, the survival, carries the quiet, unshakable knowledge, right? More like knowledge that is like I'm part of something that's bigger than myself. My people have faced storms before, and we are still here. That kind of confidence radiates through them. So now pause and look back at what our own ancestors built. A lot of us don't even have an idea. They look at them as diabolical and fetish and primitive. So with that kind of mindset, how do you expect us as Africans to shine in a world where every of our neighbors, every other race around us revere their own ancestors and have that kind of confidence in who they are and what their ancestors built? Are you seeing the pattern? I'm speaking with my producer here. I don't know if you can see the pattern, but come on, man. It basically tells us everything that we need to know when we look at ourselves. So what is all of that if it's not technology? If you ask me, technology for building exactly the thing that Emory measured, that intergenerational self installed in every child, refreshed at every gathering, and reinforced at every ritual. It's good to think about this way, right? it just makes you sit down and pause and really talk about our identity. Something that this show is really talking about, which is all about, is how do we discover ourselves as Africans, and how do we see that self-respect for ourselves? Because if we don't respect ourselves, trust me, nobody's going to respect us. And it'll be sad to live for as long as God gives me the air that I breathe, and I live without at least trying. There should be some form of message out there that remains on the internet for the next generations to see and probably help us in this period of Ugaun, so more people can be enlightened, and maybe we could find our identity again, and find our place in a world where all we have as Africans is disrespect from every other race. We all saw this World Cup and what the Paraguayan senator said about Kylian Mbappe, and that's based off of his African heritage, right? The smartest things he has seen around are chimpanzees. This is 2026, mind you. So when we think about how disrespected we are in the world, and we look at the correlation between the study that we just spoke about, basically by Emery, and ask ourselves that question again: how do we have that self-confidence in ourselves when we don't revere our ancestors? I know one thing I wouldn't take is disrespect. Trust me, I don't like it. Any human being whatsoever, and that's probably because I know who my great-grandfather was, and I know his father before him, my father before his father. Kind of know that. I've known that since I was a child. Never taken bullshit my entire life. I hope you get to find out yours. Stand your own ground in front of anybody, any race, at any point in time, knowing who you are, knowing where you came from, knowing your people, whatever they did, even if they were not great, your knowledge about them could make you be the first great one in your lineage, and hopefully your own forebears, like the generations to come, will see you in that light also and hold you to that high esteem, and have that confidence in them built out of your own time on earth. So all of this said, science validates the function of these traditions, and what we cannot do and what we would not pretend it does is settle the metaphysics, whether the ancestors truly hear the libations, whether the spirits truly cross at Ikwa. Those remain a question of faith, tradition, and personal conviction. But here's what we can say with full confidence, right? Whether or whatever else, right, ancestors' veneration was or is, it was definitely not madness. It was definitely not primitive, and it was not idol worship in any way. It was the most sophisticated system of memory, identity, and resilience that any civilization was built on, right? So who were our ancestors really? Let me try and sort the layers, the way that we always do on this show. It is documented in the archaeology, right, of Igbo, rather, in the living funeral practice, in the festival of China, Japan, Mexico, and Rome, and other parts of the world, that honoring the dead is one of humanity's oldest and most universal institutions. It is oral tradition that ancestorhood is earned, that the rites that carried the spirit across, and the egwugwu, according to Ndi Ichie in Things Fall Apart, right? The egwugwu speaks with the voice of the departed. So you should go and read Things Fall Apart. Like I said, I will keep saying it every day. Ndi Ichie is the one writer that helps us kind of visualize what our forefathers lived, life that they lived. And it's important that we hold his book as a national treasure, to kind of help us find our identity back. And it is not interpretation, it's not my interpretation, that when missionaries called what we did idol worship, they were not just describing our spirituality, they were more or less mistreating our family structure, because that's what it was basically. Extended families that we had across the boundary of death and dimension, if that makes sense. So you don't really have to accept every layer, and this show is not asking you to agree with everything that we say. We just try to ask questions and find reasonable, logical answers that make sense and doesn't make us look completely stupid, or not make us look like people who have no history, have no past, or not proud of what came before them. But before the next episode, let's try this one thing. Let's learn the names of our great-grandparents, all 8 of them. If you can, let's let's try and learn that. Most of us, cannot do it today. We can't just sit for and name a list of our great grandparents and what are they called. So let's try that. That's the exercise I'm giving today. I mean, if you can, proudly write the names of your ancestors, those you can remember, here in the comment below with pride. Call them out with pride. Let's know who they are. Let's also remember them here on YouTube. Please do that. So most of us can't do it. We can't just sit for a moment within 3 generations, a whole human life, and with all this labor and love and sacrifice reduced to nothing, not even a name. Think about that. And then we can ask elders to help us with those names. Let's write them down. Let's tell our children one story about them. I have stories about my great-grandfather. Some I'm not proud of, but some I'm really, really proud of, trust me. Let me just give you guys like a little snippet of my great-grandfather. He was one of the greatest guys in his time in the village. His nickname was Obachalo, which translates to sniper. He was a warrior, a great warrior for that matter. And we got to know about him because he literally almost overpopulated our village to cement. So that shows greatness during his time, and he lived to a ripe old age also. So that's the moral of the story. Go find out more about your own great-grandfather. At least I know a little bit about mine, and I also know about his own father, how many kids they have. We have a full family tree, kind of dating back. Yes, kind of have an idea. I luckily have a father who also loves to know about his ancestry. As Christian and as devout as a Christian as he is, he has that ingrained in him, understanding his past and revering his ancestors before him. So that's a good thing. And then we need to not forget who they are. We need to keep bringing them and their names and making it part of our day-to-day, so that when we die, our own names will also be carried on over the years past our death, and we are also living death too when we are out of this threshold into the next dimension. But before we close today, just give me another 60 seconds today to talk about our sponsors. This entire episode has been about legacy and about what survives us, right? So here's a modern truth about legacy. What is not recorded disappears, right? We can all agree. And in today's world, a business that is not online for millions of potential customers simply does not exist. Trust me, I know. That's why we built Go Digital to help African businesses build a digital presence that lasts with the same seriousness our ancestors brought to building names that outlive them, and I probably would outlive us too. And if you've been putting this off for a while because it's too expensive, it's too technical, it's too slow, here there's GoWeb gives your business a complete professional website in 7 to 14 days at the most affordable price you can find out there. Visit www.hellogodigital.com or go directly to www.hellogodigital.com/GoWeb and sign up today. Get your website done, spanking fresh, professional, beautiful, and functional for your business. Thank you again for joining me on this journey through history, memory, and the questions that refuse to stay buried. If this episode moved you, some way, somehow, please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't, turn on your notifications also. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep seeking wisdom, and remember, not everything forgotten is lost. My name is Ralu Chukuma, and this is Through the Veil. See you on the next one.